Before the age of humankind, before the first whisper of our own story, this planet belonged to another dynasty. Their footfalls echoed across continents we now call our own. They drank from waters that would one day carve our familiar landscapes and breathed an atmosphere rich with the breath of a primal world. For 150 million years, they were the undisputed masters. But their long reign was destined to conclude not with a whimper, but with a cataclysm of unimaginable scale. They would face a day none of us can truly conceive, some of the most critical hours in the 4 billion year history of life on Earth. This is the story of their final dawn. 65 million years ago, the Earth was a world of extremes, a hothouse planet shrouded in humidity. Along the western coast of a continent yet to be named North America, colossal mountains scraped the sky, presiding over a lush, forested valley teeming with life. This was the domain of evolution's titans, the final, magnificent expressions of a reptilian age. High above, a shadow drifts across the canopy. Weighing more than 350 pounds, with a wingspan stretching 40 feet from tip to tip, Quetzalcoatlus is the largest creature to ever take to the skies. A mile below, its keen eyes have spotted a breakfast no carnivore could resist. Down in the undergrowth, a new life begins. It will take this tiny hatchling 18 years to become the apex predator of its age. But for now, Tyrannosaurus Rex is a creature of mere inches, utterly exposed. Yet it is not unprotected. The father, a fully grown bull, patrols his territory. His world is one of scent, an olfactory map that allows him to track prey for miles. It also makes him an attentive parent, and his senses tell him something is wrong. The immense metabolism of Quetzalcoatlus demands a constant search for fuel. Powering its streamlined body requires rich D for gliding vast distances, but its sheer size makes a rapid takeoff from a confined space a dangerous gamble. Backed into a corner by the thunderous approach of the adult male, the giant pterosaur is forced into an awkward, desperate scramble for the air. It is lucky this time. Of the entire clutch, only one chick now survives. If it can navigate the perils of youth, it will one day stand 17 feet tall and weigh more than 7 tons. But survival, even for the king of the dinosaurs, is never guaranteed. A storm is gathering, born of events that began an eternity ago. 200 million miles away, in the cold, silent void between Mars and Jupiter, lies the asteroid belt. A river of billions of rocks, the scattered debris of a planet that never was, all hurtling through space in an ancient, synchronized orbit. All except for one. A rogue body, 40 miles across, carves a diagonal path through the orbital traffic, a cosmic maverick on a trajectory of chaos. Moving at over 22,000 miles per hour, it strikes another, larger asteroid. The impact is silent but absolute, shattering both into millions of fragments. One piece, a shard of rock and iron over 6 miles across, is thrown from the cosmic river onto a new, unalterable path. It is a messenger of doom, poised to change the course of history, for its destination is the 5th largest planet in the solar system, the only world known to harbor complex life. Meanwhile, on Earth, the planet's lords live in blissful ignorance. Herds of triceratops, among the most widespread and successful dinosaurs on the continent, move through the lowlands. They are herbivores, placid browsers of the cycad forests. But to mistake their nature for passivity would be a fatal error. They are fortresses of muscle and bone, living expressions of a world where life was a constant, brutal, and magnificent struggle for existence. A world utterly unaware that its time was measured now not in millennia, but in hours. In the twilight of the Cretaceous, the law of the land is written in size and strength. For the male Triceratops, the right to pass on his genes is a prize defended with brutal conviction. Weighing up to 6 tons apiece, these armored titans engage in contests of force and will. A direct confrontation, a clash of horn and shield, can be devastatingly fatal. On this occasion, however, a display of sheer intimidation is enough. The challenger, weighing his chances, retreats. The victor stands his ground, the master of his domain. But victory on this battlefield is fleeting. Another enemy is waiting in the shadows. This hunter is not driven by instinctual rites of passage. It is driven by hunger. Alone, a Triceratops is a formidable opponent, fast on its feet, and armored well enough to present a lethal challenge even to a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Its forward-facing horns are a wall of daggers, its immense frill a near impenetrable shield. But it is not facing one Tyrannosaurus, it is facing two. Hunting as a coordinated pair, they execute a strategy of deadly intelligence. One predator acts as a diversion, drawing the herbivore's fearsome attention, forcing it to commit to a defense. This allows the second attacker to flank, to get behind the deadly horns and the protective collar, and strike at the vulnerable flesh of the hindquarters. The battle is short, and its conclusion absolute. There is enough meat on this colossal carcass to sustain them both for weeks, yet they may not have the time to enjoy their hard-won feast. The true threat is not terrestrial, it is celestial. 250,000 miles above, the Earth's silent guardian drifts through the void. The Moon, a battered shield, has saved this planet before. Its pockmarked surface is a graveyard of cosmic collisions, a testament to countless impacts that could have sterilized the world below. The crater we call Tycho, a scar more than 50 miles wide, was gouged out by a rock only half the size of the one that is now on its final approach. But celestial mechanics are unforgiving. The Moon is rarely in the right place at the right time. Its orbit will carry it far from the path of this incoming apocalypse. Nothing can stop the asteroid now. This cosmic missile, a mountain of rock and ice hurtling through space, is not as Aliot Zero of the void. This water exists as a hard, unyielding permafrost. But sealed within its core is a chemical cocktail, a primordial blend of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. These are the key ingredients for life. It is a profound cosmic irony, as the very building blocks that allowed life to emerge from the oceans. Life that, through eons of evolution, gave rise to the dinosaurs. But the universe is indifferent. That which gives life can also, in a single catastrophic moment, take it all away. As darkness falls across the valley, the world changes. Most of the great dinosaurs, creatures of the sun, settle into a state of rest. A giant herbivore, an ankylosaurus, becomes a living fortress, its clubbed tail and armored plates a passive defense against the dangers of the night. Even in slumber, it keeps one eye open for predators. Under the cover of this profound darkness, very different creatures emerge from their secret places. From a burrow beneath the roots of a giant fern, a mesodma appears. A primitive mammal, no larger than a possum, it lives a life dictated by one simple rule: be where the dinosaurs are not. It scurries through the undergrowth, its world a tapestry of scent and sound, foraging for tasty roots and insects. While the giants sleep, it is the meek, the small, and the hidden who bear witness to a silent, lethal beauty. A meteor shower ignites the night sky. Each brilliant streak of light is a tiny fragment from the approaching asteroid, a celestial outrider burning up as it tears through the upper atmosphere. It is a spectacular, yet ominous display. For these are merely the heralds, the precursors to a much larger missile locked into a head-on collision with it. The day of reckoning has arrived. After a journey spanning 100 million years, an enormous chunk of cosmic rock, 6 miles wide, is approaching the end of the line. And the end of the line is a vibrant, living planet. In the lush floodplains of what will one day become central Mexico, a herd of Alamosaurus wanders in search of food. They are one of the most recent dinosaur species to evolve, and even by the standards of their kind, they are immense. They are the last of the great sauropods, the largest animals ever to walk the earth. Stretching 70 feet long and standing a staggering 40 feet tall, a single Alamosaurus can weigh up to 30 tons. These living mountains, pillars of flesh and bone, move with a ponderous grace, utterly oblivious. They are the final, magnificent expression of a world on the verge of vanishing forever, unaware that their 150 million year reign is about to end, not with a roar, but with a flash of silent, unforgiving light from the heavens. The air is thick with the scent of crushed ferns and damp earth. To sustain a body of this magnitude, an adult Alamosaurus must consume up to 1 ton of vegetation every single day. Their passage through the landscape is a slow, rhythmic grinding of teeth and foliage, a force of nature in its own right. A vast herd, moving with the deliberation of living mountains, can strip a valley of its greenery in a matter of hours, an act of consumption on a geological scale. Life for these titans is a perpetual journey, an endless nomadic search for sustenance. For this female, the biological imperative to continue her line must contend with this constant motion. She does not build a nest, there is no time. Instead, she deposits her future in the soil, laying her eggs in small clutches of 5 or 6. It is a strategy of dispersal, a gamble that by spreading the risk, some might escape the notice of predators. Under the normal, brutal calculus of this late Cretaceous world, the odds are already staggeringly poor. Only one hatchling in 3,000 will ever reach maturity. But the odds stacked against this fragile clutch are about to become astronomical. The ancient rules of survival are about to be rendered meaningless. Because now, less than 20 minutes away, an object composed of 2 trillion tons of rock and metal is closing its distance with the Earth. The fragment's enormous mass is only one component of the impending catastrophe. The other, far more critical, is its velocity. As it falls into the planet's gravitational embrace, the cosmic snare tightens. The asteroid accelerates, screaming through the void past 40,000, then 45,000 miles per hour. A simple, terrible equation governs what is to come. Mass multiplied by acceleration equals force. As this celestial messenger encounters the first, thin veils of the atmosphere, friction ignites its journey. It becomes a fireball, a new and unwelcome star swooping over the Atlantic, its trajectory aimed squarely at the shallow seas of the Yucatan Peninsula and the world of the Alamosaurus. It will take a mere 4 minutes to cross the entire ocean. The air in its path cannot move away fast enough. It is crushed, compressed, and superheated, transforming into a sheath of incandescent plasma. At 35,000 degrees, it burns with the light of 1,000,000 suns, a tear in the very fabric of the sky. The passage through the entire atmospheric column, a journey of miles, takes just 5 seconds. From the ground, the moment of impact would seem instantaneous. But hidden within that cataclysm is a sequence of discrete events, a chain reaction invisible to the naked eye, yet fundamental to the E. The asteroid's trajectory is not a direct vertical plunge. It slices into the atmosphere at a shallow angle, approximately 30 degrees to the surface. This detail is critical. It means the full, unimaginable brunt of its destructive power will be directed forward, thrown northward across the continent. Even before the fireball touches down, its arrival is announced. 500 miles from ground zero, the sky erupts in a searing, impossible dawn. The light is so intense that for a fleeting moment, the very flesh of the Alamosaurus seems transparent, their massive skeletons visible within. The energy is so profound, it flash burns their shadows onto the ground, dark imprints of life at the instant of its annihilation. The scorching light sears their eyeballs, blinding them to the source of their doom. They cannot see what is coming, but they can feel it through the soles of their feet. A vibration that signals the release of 100 million megatons of explosive energy. More power than all the nuclear weapons ever built by humankind, detonated in a single violent instant. Had the impact occurred in the deep ocean, the vast volume of water might have absorbed some of the kinetic force. Instead, it strikes the shallow waters of the Gulf of Mexico. The sea does not boil. It is instantly and utterly vaporized. In a fraction of a second, the entire 6-mile-wide asteroid disintegrates, its substance becoming one with the planet it has struck. Earth and rock are also vaporized, hurled skyward as a superheated gas at 100 thou crust, liberated from the ground, erupts in a titanic spray of molten rock. 500 miles from the crash site, the world is now being cooked. The air temperature climbs, reaching 600 degrees. The very atmosphere has been turned into a convection oven. The age of reptiles, a dynasty that endured for 150 million years, is ending not in shadow, but in a blaze of celestial fire. A world built on a delicate balance of predator and prey, of sun and season, is being unwritten by a singular random event from the cosmos. A stark reminder that on the grand timeline of the universe, dominance is temporary and survival is never guaranteed. The very air ignites. A wave of pure energy, hotter than the surface of the sun, radiates from the wound in the Earth's crust. For the dinosaurs caught in its path, the end is instantaneous, a silent, searing agony. The thermal pulse is so intense, it boils the water within their very cells, which erupts in violent bursts of steam from skin that was, a moment before, alive. Across the landscape, the lush vegetation of the late Cretaceous is flash-dried, every drop of moisture sucked away, leaving a brittle, blackened ghost of a forest. Anything directly exposed to this blistering wave of heat is simply broiled where it stands. A mere 108 seconds have passed since the asteroid struck the Gulf of Mexico. Yet, in the skies of the Pacific Northwest, a new and terrible star is rising. Luminous streams of vaporized rock, ejected beyond the atmosphere, now streak back towards the planet, a deadly, incandescent rain. From their cliff-top roost, 3,000 miles from the impact, a breeding pair of Quetzalcoatlus, the largest flying creatures ever to exist, can see the impossible glow. It is a second dawn, a malevolent fire consuming the distant horizon. The sheer scale is beyond their comprehension. Only 2 minutes have elapsed since the world changed forever. Near the impact site, the body count is beyond measure. But life is tenacious. Miraculously, there are survivors. Herds that were grazing in the shadow of a mountain range were momentarily shielded from the worst of the thermal blast. They are dazed, terrified, but alive. Their reprieve, however, will be brutally short. 3 more waves of destruction are already on their way. The first wave comes from above. On impact, boulders the size of city blocks were blasted into the high atmosphere at supersonic speeds. What goes up must come down. For hundreds of surviving Alamosaurus, the sky itself becomes the enemy. A celestial bombardment begins, each impact cratering the Earth with explosive force, turning a panicked retreat into a slaughter. The second wave strikes from below. The planet shudders with a seismic shock wave of unimaginable power, an earthquake registering an 11.1 on the Richter scale. It is nearly 60 times more powerful than any earthquake recorded in human history, a force capable of warping the very bedrock of the continent. The ground liquefies, swallowing Titans whole. And then comes the third wave, a silent killer, racing outward in a perfect, expanding circle. It is the blast pulse, a wall of compressed air moving faster than the speed of sound. It hits not with fire or stone, but with pure, irresistible force. It strips skin from flesh and flesh from bone. It flings 30-ton dinosaurs through the air as if they were weightless rag dolls. In just 5 minutes, 3 distinct apocalyptic events have decimated an entire ecosystem. The dynasty of the Alamosaurus is over. Most of their legacy, their eggs, has been shattered or cooked in the searing ground. And yet, the Earth is a powerful protector. Buried deep in the cool, damp earth of a riverbank, a few clutches have survived the onslaught. Inside these fragile shells, new life is stirring. A flicker of hope in a world plunged into darkness. For now. But the worst is yet to come. 8,000 miles away, on the other side of the planet, the sun shines on a world that knows nothing of its doom. In the arid scrublands of what will one day be Mongolia, life continues its ancient rhythm. At a popular watering hole in a valley, a herd of Tyrannosaurus has gathered. These are gentle giants, weighing up to 4 tons and growing to 40 feet in length. Despite their size, they are peaceful vegetarians, their lives governed by the search for food and the protection of their young, who are now at their most vulnerable. For predators lurk around every corner. Here, the jackal of the Cretaceous is not a mammal, but a reptile of unnerving intelligence, the Sauornithoides. Its brain-to-body weight ratio is among the highest of any dinosaur. It moves with a calculated grace, its large eyes missing nothing. It is a creature built for opportunity, armed with a single, oversized, razor-sharp claw on each hind foot. It watches the herd, waiting for a single moment of distraction. This is the timeless drama of the hunter and the hunted, a struggle for survival that has played out for millions of years. But this ancient dance is about to be interrupted by a messenger from the heavens, an unseen, unheard wave of change that is already racing across the globe. The routines of life, the very laws of nature they have always known, are about to become utterly meaningless in the face of a truly global extinction. An ancient hunger gnaws. The feathered hunter, a Sauornithoides, is a creature of calculated risk. It watches the herd, a moving landscape of titans. It knows better than to challenge a full-grown Tyrannosaurus, a walking mountain of flesh and bone. There is no victory in such a confrontation, not when there are easier, more vulnerable targets. A moment of inattention is all it takes. A juvenile, straying just meters from its mother's protection, becomes the prize. In a flash of predatory grace, the thief strikes. But in its rush to secure the meal, it fails to put enough distance between itself and the enraged mother. The air thickens with her fury, a low, guttural rumble that vibrates through the very soil. The Sauornithoides can smell its mistake, a miscalculation that could prove forms of life. On one side, the cunning and agility of a carnivore, its mind a razor-sharp tool honed for the hunt. On the other, a behemoth, 80 times larger, whose sheer existence warps the world around it. But the great herbivores of this world are not built for intricate combat. Their defense is their scale, their power a blunt instrument. And this is precisely what the Sauornithoides is counting on, especially when it is not alone. From the ferns, its pack emerges, silent and disciplined. Speed and strategy, the currency of survival for the small, now give them the ability to fight, to harry, to distract. Against the mother's singular, overwhelming power, they present a dozen points of attack, a fluid, intelligent threat. But on this day, neither immense size nor cunning intelligence will be enough. No earthly strategy can guarantee safety from the kind of enemy that is now approaching, an enemy born of cosmic violence. Half a world away, a wound has been torn in the planet's surface. A fireball, brighter than 1,000 suns, rises 100 miles above ground zero, punching a hole through the very atmosphere. 70 billion tons of pulverized stone and earth are vaporized, hurled into the highest reaches of the sky. It is a lethal aerosol of microscopic dust and superheated glass, and it is spreading with terrifying speed. This is the ejecta cloud, a shroud for the sun. As this global veil of debris encircles the planet at high altitude, a new phase of the extinction begins. Trillions upon trillions of tiny particles, each no larger than a grain of sand, begin their descent. Pulled by gravity, they re-enter the atmosphere. The friction of their passage ignites them, turning the sky itself into a planetary-scale furnace. A dust cloud, heated to 15,000 degrees, begins to radiate an unbearable heat down upon the world below. On a cliff-top perch in the Pacific Northwest, a male and female Quetzalcoatlus, the largest flying creatures the Earth has ever known, have a clear, unobscured view of the approaching horror. The sky to the east is beginning to glow with an unnatural, angry light. Down in the valley, however, the world is serene. A thick ocean fog, a familiar morning blanket, blocks out the sky entirely. This heavy mantle of moisture makes it impossible for the inhabitants to see the coming apocalypse. But the animals here receive a warning all the same. It comes not from above, but from deep below. When the asteroid struck, most of its titanic energy was deflected outwards and upwards into the atmosphere. Only 1% of that force traveled down into the planet's crust. But it was enough to face and through the mantle. 16 minutes and 40 seconds after impact, they reach the Pacific Northwest. The valley floor lurches. An 11.1 magnitude earthquake, a tremor of almost unimaginable power, ripples through the ground. The very bones of the continent groan in protest. Panic erupts. A herd of triceratops, their formidable horns useless against a shaking world, stampede up the side of the valley in a desperate, doomed attempt to escape the tremors and the cascading debris. Smaller animals, sensing a threat beyond their comprehension, take shelter in burrows, a final, futile instinct. Meanwhile, the ejecta cloud arrives, traveling at 10,000 miles per hour. It is a wave of incandescent death, baking the Earth with unrelenting heat. The friction of the dust-particulatic electrical storm ignites the superheated air. Then comes the rain. Superheated rocks, incandescent spherules of molten glass, shower the valley in a burning hail. The Quetzalcoatlus are in the air, fleeing the quake's devastation below. But there is no escape. There is no way to hide from a rain of fire. The valley floor might offer some meager shelter, but they are too vast, their wings too broad to descend with any speed. The male, his magnificent wings tattered by the fiery projectiles, falters. The immense sails of skin and bone, monuments to a dying age, can no longer keep him aloft. He falls from the sky, a casualty of a war he never knew was being waged. His mate circles, a lone silhouette against a sky of flame. If she does not find shelter, she will be next. The age of giants is ending, not in a clash of titans, but in a silent, searing rain from an alien sky. A testament to the profound and terrifying truth that even the mightiest are subject to the whims of the cosmos, and that on the grandest of scales, there is no sanctuary. On the high mountain slopes, a pair of triceratops breaks through the cool sea mist, lay floor torn asunder by the planet's shuddering. But just as they near the relative safety of the ridge, the sky itself turns against them. The ejecta cloud arrives. It is not weather, it is a physical blow, a wave of incandescent particles moving at hypersonic speed. It's... Mere hours ago, this continent was a paradise, the culmination of 150 million years of reptilian evolution. Now, North America is a vision of hell. The initial shockwave has passed, the rain of molten glass has ceased, but the true apocalypse is just beginning. The ejecta, a shroud of superheated ash and pulverized rock, blasted from the impact crater thousands of miles away, is not finished with this world, not by a long shot. Less than an hour has passed since the heavens fell. Across the Western Hemisphere, a graveyard of giants is being laid to rest. Hundreds of species, from the smallest browsers to the most fearsome predators, lie broken and burned. But the cataclysm knows no boundaries. High in the stratosphere, the ejecta cloud continues its inexorable spread, a stain of death bleeding across the globe, riding the upper winds at thousands of miles per hour. As it encircles the planet, its effects on the ground below vary with terrifying unpredictability. 8,000 miles away, on the plains of Asia, the first sign of doom is not a sound, but a silent, ominous change in the light. The cloud rolls in from the east, a high, thin veil that dims the sun to a malevolent red orb. In the arid landscapes of what will one day be Mongolia, the ground temperature begins to tick upwards, a few degrees hotter every second. There is no roar, no tremor, only a mounting, oppressive heat that radiates from the very air itself. As the atmosphere climbs past 120 degrees, instinct screams for shelter. But shade offers no reprieve when the air itself is the oven. At 160 degrees, survival is no longer a matter of endurance, but is measured in minutes. Beyond 200 degrees, life is extinguished in seconds. 90 minutes after a rock fell in a distant ocean, the temperature on the ground in Mongolia peaks at a staggering 300 degrees, hot enough to boil water instantly. Yet even in this global furnace, life clings on. Not every creature is baked alive. The unique microclimate of a deep cave can offer a sanctuary. its subterranean coolness a buffer against the incandescent sky. Here, a handful of survivors might hold out, their breath rasping in the superheated air. But it is a refuge that must be shared. In the suffocating dark, an uneasy peace descends between sworn enemies. Predator and prey huddle together, their ancient biological imperatives overridden by the singular, universal terror of the world outside. It is a truce born of desperation, one already fraying at the edge. Back in the Pacific Northwest of America, a strange anomaly persists. A dense, coastal fog still cloaks the valleys, a shield of water vapor deflecting the worst of the thermal radiation from above. The ordeal continues. The suffocating temperatures and crushing humidity force them to keep moving, to search for air that doesn't sear the lungs. For the scavengers, it is a time of grotesque bounty. The land is littered with the dead. But for most animals caught in the open, there was no luck, only a swift and brutal end. The female Quetzalcoatlus, a creature with a wingspan of a modern fighter jet, is one of the few of her kind left alive. The sky, once her undisputed kingdom, has become a place of terror. The last thing these traumatized survivors need is a new threat. But the aftershocks of the impact are only just beginning to cascade. Above the fog-shrouded valley and across the breadth of North America, the intense heat of the ejecta cloud has done its work. Trillions of glowing particles have rained down, igniting the vast Cretaceous forests. Fires have erupted on a continental scale, blazes so immense they generate their own winds, their own weather. Down in the valley, the superheated air above creates a catastrophic drop in atmospheric pressure. A vacuum is formed, sucking the flames from the highlands down into the basin. The towering vegetation, the cycads hottest and fastest, a roaring wave of destruction moving across the valley floor at 9 miles an hour. A Tyrannosaurus Rex, the apex predator of this world, can run at twice that speed, but it cannot maintain such a pace forever. The valley basin is no longer a landscape, it is a firestorm. The temperature within its core reaches 1800 degrees, hot enough to melt solid aluminum. The panicked animals race up the valley slopes in a desperate stampede, but fire moves faster uphill, feeding on the rising heat. Some smaller creatures are lucky, finding refuge in burrows or beneath rockfalls, the flames passing over them. But for the large dinosaurs, there is no place to hide. Their size, for so long their greatest advantage, now becomes their final vulnerability. With her delicate wing membranes still torn and damaged from the falling debris, the wounded Quetzalcoatlus struggles to take to the air. She beats her immense wings, but the lift is weak, her flight faltering. For her, and for all the dinosaurs, time is running out. 2 hours. In just 2 hours after the asteroid struck, the entire planet is veiled in a choking shroud of dust and smoke. The sun is gone, erased from the sky. The age of light and giants is over. A long, dark twilight has fallen upon the earth, a twilight from which the great reptiles will never emerge. Their reign has not ended in a slow decline, but in a final, furious crescendo of cosmic violence, a testament to the terrifying fragility of life in an indifferent universe. Across the Western Hemisphere, a planetary fever rages. Forests, plains, and coastlines, once teeming with life, are now consumed by continent-spanning firestorms, ignited by a rain of superheated rock from the heavens. The sky is no longer blue, but a permanent, suffocating twilight of smoke and ash. Here, in the heart of the inferno, a titan struggles against the end of its world. A Quetzalcoatlus, one of the last of its kind. With a wingspan rivaling that of a small aircraft and standing as tall as a giraffe, it is the undisputed lord of the Cretaceous skies. But the air that once gave it dominion is now a toxic, unbreathable soup. Each beat of its colossal wings is a desperate, monumental effort, a battle to lift its immense frame from a world that is actively trying to smother. From its vantage point, should it ever reach it, the view is one of utter desolation. What was, only days ago, a vibrant, verdant valley is now a monochrome landscape of charcoal and flame. For the creatures of the air, Escape from the fire itself is possible, but it is a hollow victory. There are few places left to land that are not burning, and almost nothing left to eat. The intricate food chain, a complex architecture rich enough to support giants, has had its foundation vaporized. The plants are gone, and with them, the plant eaters. And with the plant eaters, the hope of the carnivores. 8,000 miles away, in the highlands of what will one day be Mongolia, a different chapter of the same global catastrophe is unfolding. Here, the initial searing heat has passed. The temperatures are, at last, beginning to drop. Within the cool, dark refuge of a limestone cave, a handful of survivors have waited out the worst of the heat blast. For a fleeting moment, it seems the great dying is over. Driven by a thirst that overrides caution, the first to emerge are the small, ravenous hunters. A pack of Cerornithoidids, their feathered bodies twitching with nervous energy, cannot resist the promise of an easy meal among the dead and dying. Soon after, the braver of the larger herbivores are herd towards the familiar promise of the watering hole. Only one female, perhaps wiser or simply more timid, remains near the protective shadow of the cave. But the reprieve is a cruel illusion. As the veil of impact ejecta begins to thin in the upper atmosphere, the sudden, violent shift in global temperature throws the planet's weather systems into turmoil. The atmosphere has become a chaotic engine of destruction. In Mongolia, this engine is gathering billions of tons of dust and superfine sand. Hot air, still rising from the baked earth, begins to churn. Thermal imaging would reveal the birth of a monster. A dust storm, but one of unprecedented scale and ferocity. It builds vertically, a roiling column of pulverized earth, whipping loose particles into a frenzy and gaining terrifying energy from the residual heat radiating from the sand itself. The 300-degree temperatures that recently baked this landscape have turned a common weather phenomenon into a hyperstorm. When it hits, it is not a storm of wind, but a storm of solid matter. The small Cerornithoidids are nimble enough to crouch for cover behind rocks and carcasses, pressing themselves flat against the ground. But the towering Tyrannosaurus are caught in the open, their immense bodies fully exposed to the abrasive onslaught. The sand does not merely sting, it scours, a billion tiny blades blasting their hides. The harder they struggle, the deeper they gasp for oxygen in the choked air, the more of the suffocating dust fills their lungs, turning each breath into an act of self-destruction. One by one they fall, their colossal bodies succumbing not to a predator, but to the very air they are trying to breathe. The superstorm engulfs a vast portion of the continent, a suffocating tide of grit and darkness. It is hours before the winds finally begin to die down, leaving behind a world reshaped and silenced. The last Tyrannosaurus, the cautious female, protected once again by her cave, finally ventures out. She heads towards the watering hole alone, a solitary pilgrim in a dead land. Halfway there, she makes a devastating discovery. The still forms of her herd, transformed into silent, sand-dusted monuments to the storm's fury. She is the last of her kind. But she is not the only dinosaur to have survived. Huddled in the leeward side of a fallen Tyrannosaurus, the pack of Cerornithoidids were sheltered from the worst of the maelstrom. The corpse that saved them was to be their meal, but the storm has swallowed it, burying it under an impenetrable layer of sand. Instinct, sharpened by a desperate hunger, drives them back to their prime hunting ground, the watering hole. There, the last Tyrannosaurus is taking in much-needed fluid, her body trembling with exhaustion and shock. She is lucky to be alive, but she is too spent, too broken, to flee from any new sign of danger. And danger has arrived. The Cerornithoidids are desperate, their bodies weakened by hunger and the buffeting of the sand. Only one, perhaps the alpha, has the confidence to attack the giant. It lunges. Its prey is too exhausted to run, but this time, size and sheer mass matter. A single weary shove from the herbivore sends the attacker tumbling. The remaining pack moves in. but they have no intention of repeating their leader's mistake. They will not risk an assault on the Tyrannosaurus, not when fate has offered them a meal that cannot fight back. In a grim tableau of this new, brutal world, they turn on their fallen comrade. A week after impact, food is a currency more precious than life across the entire planet. The struggle is universal, but it is hardest for the plant eaters, the great engines of the Cretaceous. Their silent, starving demise is a testament to a world unmade from the ground up. The age of giants did not end in a single, fiery instant. It is ending now, in the quiet desperation of a lone survivor at a dusty watering hole, in the brutal calculus of a starving predator, in the slow, inexorable unraveling of life itself. The engine of life for a creature of this scale is a furnace that never sleeps. For the great herbivores, existence is a constant, relentless search for fuel to sustain their massive bulk. But now, only 3 days since the sky fell, there is nothing. The planet, once a vibrant sphere of blue and green, is now a bruised globe shrouded in a perpetual twilight, its landscapes anything but green. A once familiar world has been scoured by fire, superheated by the initial blast, and then lashed by rains of acid. The very terrain is a scar, unrecognizable to its inhabitants. A pair of Triceratops, titans of the late Cretaceous, are now refugees in their own kingdom. Under normal circumstances, their daily wanderings would cover no more than a few miles, a slow and steady procession through a world of plenty. They wouldn't have to, but the old world is gone. Most of a continent has been stripped bare, its vegetation incinerated or poisoned. Hunger, a force more powerful than any predator, now dictates their path, driving the giant herbivores on a desperate exodus toward the Pacific coast. The hunters are, for a time, more fortunate. For them, this new world is a banquet of the dead and dying. Yet even they know caution. A weakened herd is one thing. 2 adult Triceratops, their formidable horns silhouetted against the smoldering horizon, are a fortress of muscle and bone too much to take on. For now. The planet's geography is ancient and complex. In its folds and contours, some places can find shelter from even the most cataclysmic of events. And then, through the acrid haze, a vision. An island, seemingly untouched by the surrounding desolation. An emerald jewel in a sea of ash. It is a ghost of a forgotten world, a promise that somewhere, something is still growing. There may still be food here. High above, in the choked and sulphurous air, another survivor charts a course of desperation. A female Quetzalcoatlus, a creature with a wingspan rivaling that of a small aircraft, has been on the wing for 3 agonizing days. Her immense strength is failing, weakness gnaws at her. From 1,000 feet up, her keen eyes spot the anomaly. The island comes into view, a verdant sanctuary. But the violence of the heavens was answered by a violence from the deep. Deep below the surface, the ocean floor, shaken to its foundations by the asteroid's initial impact, is unstable. The strain is too great. Sedimentary rock, the compressed memory of millennia, simply disintegrates. An entire section of the continental shelf collapses hundreds of feet into the abyss. On the surface, the effect is immediate and profound. The sea level plunges, triggering a massive, silent swell far from shore. At the coast, the ocean itself seems to hold its breath. It is dragged back hundreds of feet from the land, a monstrous exhalation that exposes huge, glistening expanses of seabed. For the starving Triceratops, this bizarre event is a miracle. The path to the island is suddenly dry land. It seems too good to be true. Half a mile from the coast, the 3 giants finally reach their promised land. Here, the forest appears untouched by the hellstorm of ejecta. Sheltered from the searing blast by a persistent sea mist, protected from the continental fires by the surrounding ocean, the island has all the food they need. The pair has not had a decent meal in days. They tear at the lush cycads, the taste of life after an age of ash. But the asteroid has awakened the ocean's most primal and destructive force, a mega tsunami. It is not a wave, it is a moving cliff face, a liquid mountain 300 feet tall, racing toward the shore at the speed of a jet. Within seconds, the land is deluged. The impossible sanctuary is erased by an avalanche of water that scours the island down to bedrock. And as quickly as it came, the flood is gone, dragged back into the churning ocean. But this is not a singular event. It is merely the first soldier in an immense army of mega tsunamis. The impact launches them against more than 13,000 miles of coast across the globe. Huge swaths of shoreline, entire ecosystems, are simply washed away into the sea, leaving countless dead in their wake. Net. Continental firestorms, world-shaking earthquakes, suffocating sandstorms, and towering tsunamis. But these are only the outward signs, the violent symptoms of a catastrophe that reaches much deeper, into the very chemistry of the air and the oceans. Across the continents, thousands of dinosaurs may still be walking, their hearts still beating, their legs still moving. But they are ghosts. Their species are already dead. Their world has been unwritten, and the final chapter of their 65 million year reign is already over. For any species to endure, it must maintain a critical mass. A vibrant, interconnected population, robust enough to weather the caprices of a changing world. But once it falls below that vital threshold, the mathematics of survival become unforgiving. The descent is silent, inexorable. There is no climbing back from the precipice of extinction. The final, fatal blow may take seasons or centuries to land, but its arrival is as certain as the turning of the planets. For the dinosaurs, the coup de grace comes not from the heavens, but from the very world beneath their feet. When a rock 6 miles across strikes the Earth at 45,000 miles per hour, it does more than carve a crater. It injects the energy of 1 million megatons directly into the planet's core, a force exceeding the world's entire nuclear arsenal, delivered in a single, catastrophic instant. Seismic shockwaves, a planetary convulsion, ripple through the crust and mantle. For months, the world shudders with aftershocks as tectonic plates, the very bedrock of continents, shear and tear under the strain. Deep within the Earth, this planetary trauma awakens a sleeping giant. The shockwaves create a network of new fractures, conduits reaching down into the molten heart of the world. Under immense pressure, magma, the lifeblood of the planet, is forced violently upward. It surges through these fresh wounds until it explodes from the crust in a chain reaction of volcanic eruptions. Across the globe, dormant volcanoes, silent for millennia, are jolted back to life. They join the cataclysm, spewing their own columns of ash and toxic gas into an already choked atmosphere. The shroud, born of vaporized rock and soot, is now miles deep, a thick, suffocating blanket that smothers the sun, stopping its light and warmth from ever reaching the surface. The planet plunges deeper into a long, artificial winter. In the We, a kingdom of decay, feasting on the rotting remains of a once bountiful world. Here, in what will one day be Mongolia, the epic story of the dinosaurs has dwindled to a single, lonely survivor. For a starving Corythosaurus, the future is a barren canvas. Instinct, a ghost of a forgotten time, guides it back to a familiar cave, a place that has twice saved it from the sky's fury. It stays near the hollow that was once a vibrant watering hole, a theater of life now reduced to a stagnant pool. But this last hadrosaur will not fall to starvation. Its end will be silent and invisible. Bubbling up from the wounded earth comes one of nature's most insidious poisons, hydrogen sulfide. Released by the deep volcanic turmoil, the gas is heavier a death trap. The first breath paralyzes the lungs, making escape impossible. The second brings the finality of suffocation. What was once a sanctuary has become a tomb. The last dinosaur in this part of the world is gone. Thousands of miles away, Mexico is a graveyard. Just 500 miles from ground zero, it has been scoured by wave after wave of devastation. The blast wave, the firestorm, the acid rain. It seems there is nothing more that nature can throw at this scorched earth. And yet, Beneath a thin layer of charred soil, protected by the very ground that burned, a lone Alamosaurus egg has survived. A perfect, silent vessel, holding a future that may never come to pass. In the Pacific Northwest of North America, the gray wasteland is patrolled by a handful of ghosts. An ankylosaurus, severely weakened, its 4-ton frame gaunt with hunger, searches the charred terrain. 25 feet of armored muscle, this walking fortress is accustomed to consuming nearly 300 pounds of vegetation every day. Now, all it can find is a single, withered bush. Even this meager prize will not come without a fight. Another of its kind, equally desperate, contests the discovery. But hunger is now the least of their worries. Stalking through the gloom is a predator that has not eaten in weeks, a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Two of the world's most formidable armored warriors facing a carnivore that will not be denied. The Ankylosaurus's primary defense, its only real weapon, is a heavy club of solid bone at the end of its tail. In this dying world, it is a final, desperate contest, a battle fought not for territory or dominance, but for one more day of existence. For a Tyrannosaurus Rex, weakened by an empty world, the final hunt is an act of sheer desperation. Its immense power is failing, its body a prisoner of its own colossal energy demands. With the once lush ecosystems now barren landscapes of ash and decay, starving giants are forced into a final brutal calculus for every calorie. A battle for survival becomes a battle to the death. The dinosaurs that outlasted the initial reign of fire, the globe-spanning firestorms, and the suffocating veils of poison gas, now fall victim to a more insidious enemy, the relentless demands of their own magnificent bodies. An evolutionary journey of 160 million years, a saga of adaptation and dominance that produced the most spectacular creatures to ever walk the earth, had reached its zenith. It took just one rock from the heavens to bring it all to ruin. The events triggered by the impact unfolded with an almost unimaginable velocity. Within moments, seismic shocks of a magnitude never before experienced ripped through the planet's crust, generating earthquakes that liquefied the very ground. In the first 3 minutes, mountains of displaced rock, hurled into suborbital flight, returned to Earth as a cataclysmic rain of city-flattened everything in its path. Just 44 minutes after the initial strike, the superheated ejecta, the entire planet was now in the grip of a singular, violent convulsion. In the He world's oxygen, raising the Earth to an inferno, violent, choking dust storms, born from the pulverized rock of the impact site, scoured entire ecosystems from existence. Along the world's coastlines, titanic waves, hundreds of meters high, erased millennia of geologic history in a single thunderous surge. Taken together, it is a litany of destruction so complete it strains belief that anything on the surface of the planet could have survived. But something had. In Mexico, a mere 500 miles from the point of impact, lies the very first landmass to feel the unbridled force of the asteroid. A region that has suffered wave upon wave of apocalyptic violence. Yet even here, even now, a flicker of life remains. Buried deep within the soil, insulated from the searing heat and crushing shock waves, the last surviving Alamosaurus egg has endured. Within its fragile shell, a chick has weathered the barrage of destruction, and it is not alone. Across the wounded globe, small, isolated pockets of dinosaurs attempt to begin again. But their tiny, fragmented populations are a genetic dead end. Inbreeding and disease stalk these last survivors, weakening their already fragile hold on existence. The once teeming legions that had ruled the world for eons are reduced to a handful, then to a single, solitary animal. And then, it too is gone. With its passing, a dynasty that held dominion over the Earth for 160 million years is finally and completely extinct. But the dinosaurs were never the only animals on the planet. For all that time, other, humbler life forms had existed in their immense shadow. When the floods and firestorms came, these creatures of the undergrowth enacted a different strategy. They found shelter underground. Some hid deep within the root systems of dying trees. Others took refuge in the cool embrace of the soil. Its darkness, they were protected from the worst the apocalypse could throw at them. The earth would be inherited not by the strong, but by the animals that were good at hiding. The waters offered another sanctuary. Fish were sheltered beneath the surface, shielded from the heat and fire. So too were the great aquatic reptiles. And birds, especially waterfowl, possessed a unique advantage. They could dive deep underwater or retreat to burrows along the ravaged riverbanks. It would be years before the sun's life-giving energy could fully penetrate the thick, persistent cloud of soot and ash. But slowly, painstakingly, the heavy veil begins to clear. In the Gulf of Mexico, where the asteroid delivered its fatal wound, a shallow crater can be seen from orbit, a deceptively small scar for an injury that reshaped the destiny of all life. Out of the ruins, nature begins again. In this new, broken world, the first to rise are the simplest of organisms. Molds and fungi, the great recyclers, dominate the burned and rotting landscape, feasting on the wreckage of the old world. Then, new growth emerges, and one plant in particular, an ancient and resilient pioneer, begins to reclaim the land. Ferns, spreading in a silent, green tide across the gray wasteland. They are the first sign that the world's great fever is finally breaking. On a planet scoured clean by fire and stone, life finds a way. Not the life of giants and kings, but the quiet, tenacious life that waits for its moment in the sun. A new world was not just possible, it was already beginning to grow. From the ashes of a fallen world, a new green tide emerges. Hardy and tenacious, ferns push through the scorched earth, carpeting the planet in a verdant shroud. Over thousands of years, these humble pioneers yield to towering forests, vast canopies breathing oxygen back into the atmosphere, setting the stage for the next great act of evolution. For in the shadows, a different kind of survivor had been waiting. Creatures whose destiny had been suppressed for an epoch, held in check by the long reign of the dinosaurs. They were the mammals. Breeders and brilliant adapters, they multiply and diversify, exploding into 10,000 new species across the planet. Yet millions of years must pass before one lineage takes a fateful turn, descending from the trees to walk upon two legs. Their brains expand, unlocking consciousness and ambition. They are destined to rule, inheriting a throne once occupied by giants. But they're it, raising cities that scrape the heavens, forging vessels that slip the bonds of earth, and crafting weapons with the power to undo creation itself. And yet, this entire saga hinges on a moment of cosmic chance, a violent encounter in the void 165 million years ago that doomed the dinosaurs to extinction. Their end was the necessary precondition for our beginning. From the grandest tomb the world has ever known, humanity was permitted to rise.